Hello, Click community. It is Kelly Beeser, and today we are talking about creating Warhol-inspired portraits. Um, just a little side note before we get started here. I am a little bit under the weather, so I apologize if I sound extra raspy. I I feel like I'm in that episode of Friends where Phoebe gets a cold and all of a sudden her singing voice is like sexy, except I just sound congested and not sexy. Um, but if I have to blow my nose or something, please forgive me. Back on track. So, there are plenty of Instagram filters and other tutorials to tell you how to create kind of that pop art look in Photoshop. But when I was setting out to create this, I found that they all kind of oversimplified the process of what Warhol was doing. You all know I'm a big art history junkie. And so, knowing how he approached things with the screen printing process and combining that with photography, I really wanted to recreate that look with all of those layers and all of that depth. And I found that everything else out there was too simplified. So today I'm going to show you how I recreated Warhol in a way that I think does him justice. This is my finished product based on, it was heavily inspired by a self-portrait that Andy Warhol himself did. But let's start at the beginning. So I started with this black and white photograph of myself. Yeah, it's just a simple black and white photograph. I used studio lights just so I could have more control over the lighting pattern. I wanted to match his, but you could do this with any black and white photo set against a plain background. Super, super simple. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to create an empty layer and I'm going to fill it. And actually I'm going to come back to this because I want to fill it. We're going to do this green and pink one, I think, for our example. I want to fill it with this. So I'm just going to come here with my brush tool and click there, and you can see this square has turned to that pink color. So when I come over here and I come to edit and fill, I can just put it on foreground layer or foreground color, and all of a sudden I filled it with that pink color. Now, obviously, my photo's disappeared. So let's bring it back. We're going to create a background copy and put it right there on top. But I don't want this background to be this gray anymore. I want it to be that pink color. So what I am going to do is I'm going to use this quick selection tool, which is basically magic. And I'm just going to select myself very quickly. The key to making this tool work is to never go outside of the lines that you want to select. It's better to stay way inside and inch your way out than it is to accidentally go outside the lines, because then Photoshop gets very confused. So I feel pretty good about that. Now, if we were just to stop right here, it would be a really good, simple cutout, but we want it to be a little bit more refined. So I'm just going to come up here to selected mask, and I'm going to say refine hair. And again, it's some sort of Photoshop wizardry that I'm not going to pretend to understand, but now it's gone in and selected around all of those little tiny pieces of hair. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to output settings or output 2. And I'm going to go to new layer with layer mask. And what that's going to do, ta-da, is it's going to let that pink be in the background. And now I'm in the foreground. And I can actually go ahead and delete this background copy. So we have that magic done. The next is to kind of give it that super contrasty, signature black and white look that you see in the Warhol screen prints. And the way we do that is we come up to Image, Adjustments, and Threshold. And yeah, you're already kind of there. Now, this is almost too much for me. Let's... you can cut both. You can go this way. Now I'm like a complete silhouette. This way, it's all white. We want it somewhere in the middle there. How about we do it right there? What do you guys think? I think it's pretty great. And so we're just going to land right there with it. But again, you can see in this, I'm not black and white. I'm green and light green. And actually, we're going to go ahead and select those options. We're going to get that brush out again. Press Option, use the eyedropper tool to select that. And then we're going to press X to make these switch. See how they switch when I press X? We're going to use the eyedropper tool to select that minty green color right there. So now I've got the deep green and the minty green right here. I'm going to press X again so the darker green's on top. Now watch this, guys. We come up to that image, adjustments, and gradient map. And look, those two colors are right there. Now, if you'd forgotten to select those colors, you can definitely come here and just punch those colors in here, right? Like I could get those, I could get that hex number and pop it in right here, but I find it much easier just to go ahead and select them straight out the gate. So already you can see that we're on track for success. Now, a lot of the tutorials you see and a lot of the filters you see will have you stop right here. And I'm not saying that this isn't cool. What I'm just saying is it's kind of, I'm trying not to use bad words, guys. It's just kind of half butting it. I can't think of another word for it. It's like half the effort that it deserves. So we're going to go a few steps further. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to press Command J to duplicate that layer. So that minty green, dark green layer, we're going to go ahead and duplicate it. But now, instead of this gradient map being minty green and dark green, it's going to be, I'm going to press Option again. I'm going to select the pink. Now the dark areas are going to be pink and the light areas are going to be minty green. So we're going to come up here to Image, Adjustments, Gradient Map. We're going to press OK. So now we've got this going on. But I'm going to instead fill this with black, the layer mask that is. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down here with this brush at 100% opacity. And we're just going to have it on white right here. And we're just going to brush some of that pink back onto here. And do you see how by setting it that way, we're not affecting the minty green layer. We're only affecting this pink stuff. And you can kind of go wherever you want with it. I'm not sure I want it there. Maybe we'll just go like right there. We'll just go right there. And this is just to add a little extra depth because when you're using screen printing, you have all these different layers of ink. Screen printing is kind of like Photoshop where you're working on layers. Different colors will start peeking through. I'm not sure I like that one. Let's try that again. And, just like with so many things with editing, so much of it comes down to like really paying attention to the details and caring enough to do like tedious things. How about we come down here to the chin a little bit and just create like that kind of business. I think I know what's annoying me, guys. This needs to be harder. So we've got it 0% hardness now. Let's bring it up to 100% hardness. There we go. Oh my gosh, that's so much better. Because you'd be getting those hard lines in a screen printing. Yeah, so much cooler. And then, we can come in here, get a little bit on the hand. And it's almost like we're just like painting on shadows. Again, just to add a little bit of depth. Now, you better believe I'm going to say this is not nearly enough to make this not a cringy Instagram filter version of a Warhol. I'm going to expect a lot more from you. Because we can, right? So this is definitely cooler. I'm like just like look at that little difference that made. So much cooler. But we're going to take it a step further. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create another empty layer by pressing this little plus sign within a square. And we're going to start creating some texture in the background. And how we're going to do that is we're going to go into our little brush folder here, right? And I actually I've been using this recently because I just did this Warhol. But I like this hard round modified. And we're going to go ahead and make that bigger. I like using the bracket keys. You can definitely use the slider if you want. Maybe, is it not gonna let me? What's going on? Okay, let's see if we like that green color. So that's what we're gonna start with. Okay, maybe not, guys. Maybe it really wants us to come up here and use the slider just to prove me wrong. But all we're gonna start doing is just stamping some of that green color up here. And do you see how that looks all nice and textured? Now, if I just kept going in here and using texture like this, it's going to look fake after a while. It's going to be really noticeable that I just used the same brush over and over. So my trick for this, and I think first I'm going to start with this minty green. I think that's how I did it in this one, right? Yes, we started with the minty green. So yeah, if I just did this over and over, it's just going to be obvious. So what we're going to do is we're just going to turn it around. And see how that like kind of cross hatches it and makes it look so much more believable as something actually going on there. And you can keep just turning it over and over. Just like that. And I don't like where it's like intersecting my head right there. So we're just gonna try to keep it in that corner. Yeah, I like that. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing, but over here with this dark green. So it looks like it kind of just like spilled off the page right here, right? And we'll turn it again so that we won't be so obvious. It's, it's just kind of trial and error, finding what you like and don't like. Now, I'm loving this. We're getting so much closer. Can you see how we're getting so much closer to this? But we're going to keep going. I'm going to keep adding some of this texture up here in my hair, but we're not going to do it 100% opacity. We're going to kind of do it at like 30-ish opacity. We'll keep bringing that opacity down as we work through because we just want it to look kind of scuffed up, I guess. Not such clean lines because, again, the cheap filters or quick tutorials will show you like this filled in block perfection, which is whenever you see something looking perfect, it's a pretty good indication that it's not handmade. And we want to look like this was made by hand. So, we're striving for imperfection, I guess. And then we're going to come in here, use that pink. And we'll bring the opacity down just a little bit more. Say 15 maybe. And it's like almost like that pink is peeking through from the background. Then maybe a little bit of the green is going to peek through. And you just kind of keep stamping that on as like, again, texture. And once we're happy with that, we're actually going to start adding texture, which if you've ever done a Photoshop tutorial with me, I love using textures. And this is just File, Place Embedded. I've got a whole folder of textures. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one, this one, and we're just going to stretch it to fit our square canvas here. Ta-da! And that looks like nothing. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to come to Image, Adjustments, Gradient Map. Actually, cancel that because I'm going to press D, so these are black and white again. Now we're going to come to Image, Adjustments, Gradient Map. So now it's black and white. And we're going to put it in soft light mode. And do you see how that just adds some extra texture? Now, I don't want it quite at 100%. I think it's a little bit much. I usually hover around like 30 to 35%. And again, it's just adding some more layers of interest to our finished product. And then we're going to do it again with a different texture. Let's use this one. And this one, I think I'm going to play with it not in black and white. Let's just see what happens. So we'll come down here to soft light mode and put it at 35%, just like the other one. I kind of like the warmth that adds. And now it's just about adding more stuff. So we're kind of going to come back down here to our empty layer where we're adding texture. And we're just going to keep doing that, you guys. I mean, it sounds silly just to like be like, the trick is just to keep adding more paint, but that's the trick. And, you know, I'm even looking at this one. It looks like I added some different, like, shades of pink. So, like, let's just come up here and add this, like, lighter shade in. Maybe we'll do it at, like, a little bit higher opacity now. And we'll turn our brush again just to make sure we're being sneaky still. And that's kind of it, guys. You just kind of keep doing that until it looks scuffed up enough to be believable to you. And then you do it 3 more times in 3 separate colors. And you put them all together in a square like this. And then you too can have your own Warhol-inspired portrait. If you have any questions about anything I did here, please reach out. Don't hesitate to ask. I'm always here and happy to help. Thank you for bearing with me in my raspy voice all this time, and I hope to talk to you soon. See you guys.